Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here and welcome to another Bookmas video. In today's video, I'm going to be picking my December TBR, but not just any old way. I'm going to be doing a TBR prompt jar, but my jar is actually Santa. So I'm going to be using Santa to pick my December TBR. I added a few winter prompts to this so that I can pick some wintry books. If you watch Bookmas Day 1, then you already know I went book shopping and I ended up buying 3 different wintry themed books. So hopefully my TBR prompt will allow me to pick those for my December TBR. And as always, I have a stack of physical books. I also have a list on my Kindle of books that I'm going to be using to choose from for this video. And before we start, I do need to preface, like I do in all of my TBR videos, that I do not follow my TBR exactly. I'm very much a mood reader and I just end up using this as kind of a guide for what I kind of want to read in the month. So I still love doing it. I love setting my intentions and reminding myself of books that I have that I kind of forgot about. But if I forced myself to read my TBR, it would be very unenjoyable. So I read what I want. I kind of just use this as a guide, but I still love to do it. So with that being said, let's get started and let's pick prompt number 1. Okay. This is prompt number 1, friends pick the book. So I'm gonna text my friend Sydney. I'm gonna send her a picture of the stack of books and then also my Kindle list. And I'm gonna see what she ends up picking for me in my December TBR. I was not expecting her to reply so fast, but Sydney actually ended up responding. She said that Binding 13 is on her TBR too. And so Binding 13 is a romance book that I have on my Kindle list just because it's something that I hear a bunch of people talking about it, so I kind of have been wanting to read it, but I don't really know too much about it. All I know is it is a romance book that takes place in a college called Tommen, or the Tommen College. So it's the Boys of Tommen series, and the first book follows Shannon and Johnny, and Shannon is a new girl at school. She's kind of shy. Johnny is a super famous rugby player at the school. I've heard it's Wattpad-y writing, but people are obsessed with the world and so obsessed with the characters, and I kind of just wanted to understand why. So I put it on my list of books that I potentially would want to read on my Kindle this year, or this month, not this year. And she picked it, which honestly, I wasn't expecting her to pick, but it is on my December TBR now. I'm curious about it, so I am excited to read it. The only reason I'm kind of hesitant is because I don't know if it's exactly my kind of book. Like, I know other people love it. I feel like this is kind of the thing that I'm not going to relate to. We'll give it a shot. So the first book on my TBR is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. If you guys have read this book or know anything about this series, let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if you think I'll enjoy it. But let's pick prompt number 2. Prompt number 2. The second prompt is a wintry book. And for this prompt, I have 3 perfect books to choose from. And those are actually the ones that I bought in Bookmas Day 1. So this is your final reminder to watch that video if you don't want it spoiled. But these are the books that I ended up getting in that video. So I'm going to go through them and kind of decide which one I want to read the most and add it to my December TBR. The first one is The Book Club Hotel by Sarah Morgan. This book follows a woman named Hattie and her husband. They opened up a hotel together, and it's known for having a very beautiful library, so people love to go there to read. And then her husband unexpectedly passed away, so now she's a single mom and she's running the hotel alone during the busiest season in winter time. So her 3 best friends end up flying to visit her and stay at her hotel, and they start reminding each other of how much they really have in common, how many things they've been through that relate to each other. And I think it's just a book about friendship and relying on your friends when you're in times of need, which I feel like seems like a very cute, fun, wintry book. So definitely excited to read this one. Then I have Bright Lights by Christmas by Mary Kay Andrews, and this book is about a woman named Carrie. She's recently unemployed and single, and so she decides to move to New York and live in this RV with her brother and his dog, and they sell Christmas trees from there. And through that, she ends up meeting a man named Charles. He's a single dad, and I believe they form a romance, but I'm not too sure. And then there's also kind of like a mystery aspect to it of an older man in the neighborhood goes missing. So that is what this book is about. It seems sweet. I don't really know this author, but I feel like people have liked her books before. I feel like I've heard of her before, so that's kind of what led me to pick it up. I'm curious about this book, but I don't know if it's my favorite one or the top one that I want to read. And then the last one that I picked up was called Christmas with the Queen. This one is more of a historical fiction Christmassy book, and this one is about Olive and Jack. And Olive is a BBC reporter and Jack is a chef, and they both work closely with the Queen. So over the past 5 Christmases, their lives have intertwined with the Queen, and this book follows their last Christmas with the Queen, and I believe they end up forming some kind of romance, but it's also kind of like a historical fiction book. Sounds sweet. It had very good reviews on Goodreads, so I am excited to read this one. I think it's between these two, and I think I'm gonna end up going with Christmas with the Queen, just because I do love a book that has more historical fiction elements. This one takes place in 1952, and it sounds very cute, very fun, so I'm excited to add this one to be the second book on my December TBR. So now it is time for prompt number 3. Book with a blue cover. Okay, I think I have quite a few for this. I have 3 book options for a book with a blue cover, and the first one is The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. This is one that I've been wanting to read for a little while. I think this book is a historical fiction book that ends up following 2 different families. So one of them is an indigenous family. They go to Maine every summer to pick blueberries, and then one summer their youngest daughter Ruthie ends up going missing, and then it follows another family where their youngest daughter named Norma starts thinking that something is off within her family dynamic. So she starts looking into it and uncovering secrets that her family has hidden from her, and somehow those intertwine, and that is what this book is about. Then I have Bright Lights Big Christmas by Mary Kay Andrews again, or Us Against You by Frederick Backman. So this is the second book in the Beartown series. If you haven't read the Beartown series, it takes place in a town called Beartown, and they're very known for their hockey, and so you kind of follow all the different people in the town and how their life relates to hockey. And it's so much more than just that though, because it incorporates different aspects of real life, and he talks about very difficult topics, but he does it in such a realistic and also readable way. I really love his writing. I've been wanting to finish this book. Part of me actually feels like I should reread Beartown before reading the second book, just to remind myself, because I haven't read Beartown since 2022, and I feel like I definitely forgot a lot of details. But I think I'm just gonna end up adding this to my TBR, and if that means I'm reading Beartown first, they both have blue covers, so I feel like it still makes sense. But I think I'm gonna end up going with this one because I've been wanting to read it, and I miss the world, and I love Frederick Backman, and I recently read one of his books and I just got reminded of how much I love his writing, and I'm ready to just like binge all of his books. So this is gonna be book 3 on my December TBR. Now let's pick prompt number 4. Read the next book in an unfinished series. This coming after I just put Us Against You on my TBR is a little bit funny, but I do have another book that I want to read for this, and that is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. That is the 3rd book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, which I love, and I'm very, very excited to finish. So definitely excited to add that one to this TBR. That book follows Pip, a high schooler, and she just solves different murders in her town. So the first one is a murder-suicide that took place at her high school with Sal and Andy that she solved in the first book. And the second book followed the disappearance of her best friend's older brother Jamie, and you kind of figure out what happened to him. So love her books, love the writing, very excited to finish the series. So I want to add As Good as Dead to my TBR. So that is my 4th book on my December TBR. So now it's time for prompt number 5. A book that starts with your initial. Okay, so I need a book that starts with S. So the only book that I have that starts with an S is actually a book from my Kindle, and it's Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This book is actually in a trilogy, and it's the trilogy that comes before the Six of Crows duology, and that's why I want to read this book, because I want to read Six of Crows more than anything, because I've been recommended that book by my best friend in my comments, literally everywhere. People love that book, so I want to read Six of Crows, but I feel like I have to read the trilogy first, and the first one is Shadow and Bone. And this book basically takes place in a world where they're being attacked by these monsters who eat human flesh. So the royal court take her in, and they add her to the Grisha, which is their magical elite that fight against these monsters, and that's kind of where you go from that book. I'm excited to read it mostly because I really want to read Six of Crows, but I do still think this trilogy is going to be fun, so I'm adding that one to my TBR. That is the 5th book on my TBR, and that's my cat Maisie. For anyone wondering, she's definitely working hard at the biscuit factory right now on that red blanket. She is obsessed with it. But anyways, now it is time for my last and final prompt in this video. Let's see what Santa has in store for prompt number 6. This little one. Been on your TBR for less than a year. Okay, this one's exciting because I have many of those. I'm going between a few different books for this prompt because I have quite a few new books that I'm intrigued by. The first one is The Book Club Hotel. I kind of just want to read this because it's Christmassy, so I feel like I should add it to my TBR, but the other books I'm a little bit more intrigued by. And so the second one is Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. I've been wanting to read this book for a while. It's a romantasy. It follows these 2 sisters, and when their mom passes away, one of the sisters gets her powers, then she also inherits her debt. So she enters herself into the Wicked Games, which is this game that takes place in like a haunted haunted house, and there are different floors with different challenges that you have to compete and win, and the winner takes home a big prize, so enough to pay off this debt that she's in. And there are phantoms there. She ends up finding a romance with a phantom, I'm pretty sure, but that's kind of what that fantasy book is about. I think it has trials, and I love trials in a fantasy book, and I've been wanting to read Phantasma for a while, so I am pretty curious about that one. But the one that I'm most curious about and most excited for, I actually found like not even that long ago, like maybe a month ago, The Will of the Many by James Islington, and this is another fantasy book. So basically there is someone named Vis who ends up going to the most prestigious school, and in this school, after you graduate, you give your will away to the elite. So I don't really know what the will is, but essentially this guy's actually going in as a spy. He's trying to uncover some information, and he has no plans to actually give his will up at the end of this, but he's lying to everyone's faces. So it's basically a book about a fugitive, a spy, going into this school trying to get information but lying to everyone's faces so that he doesn't get caught. It's supposed to be very, very good. It has incredible reviews, and it's kind of compared to The Hunger Games mixed with dark academia, so it sounds very interesting. I'm very excited to read that one. I think I might end up adding that one to my TBR, even though I know I should add this one. But like I said, my TBR is not something I will strictly follow, so if I end up wanting to read this one, I still can. I'm gonna end up adding The Will of Many by James Islington, and that is the last book on my December TBR. So I'm actually very happy with how my TBR came out. It's an accumulation of a bunch of books that I'm very excited for. Thank you, Santa, for picking such a good TBR for me. So this is my December TBR physically, very small, but the first book that I ended up going with was Binding 13 because my friend Sydney picked it for me by Chloe Walsh. Then I did Christmas with the Queen by Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb for a wintry book. Then I did Us Against You by Frederick Backman for a book with a blue cover. As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson for a book that's in an unfinished series. Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo for a book that starts with my first initial, so S. And then the last book that we ended up adding was The Will of Many by James Islington for a book that's been on my TBR for less than a year. So that's my official December TBR, 6 books. I'm very excited for all of them. Thank you so much for being here and for watching this video. Let me know down below your TBR or any books that you're excited for December. If you're excited for any of these, if you read any of these, let me know anything down below. And hopefully I will see you in the next one, which is tomorrow for Bookmas. So see you then. Bye.